Hello everyone, I am the Boring Historian, and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. The image shows a bustling medieval marketplace with vendors selling various types of street food. People from different social classes gather around wooden stalls to purchase meat pies, pretzels, and other ready-to-eat foods. The scene captures the vibrant nature of medieval street food culture, with historically accurate period details. When we think of junk food today, our minds often conjure images of drive-thrus, colorful packaging, and highly processed ingredients. However, the concept of convenient, ready-to-eat food that prioritizes flavor and satisfaction over nutritional value is far from a modern invention. The medieval period, spanning roughly from the 5th to the 15th century, had its own thriving fast food culture that catered to travelers, urban workers, and the poor who lacked cooking facilities or the means to prepare meals at home. This comprehensive exploration will delve into the fascinating world of medieval junk food, examining not only what people ate on the go, but also the social, economic, and cultural factors that shaped these culinary traditions. From meat pies and pasties to sweet treats and fried delights, medieval Europe developed a rich tapestry of street foods that reflected regional ingredients, cooking techniques, and cultural values. The development of medieval junk food was intimately connected to the growth of urban centers throughout Europe. As towns and cities expanded from the 12th century onward, the concentration of people living in relatively small areas created new challenges and opportunities for feeding the population. Unlike rural dwellers who typically had access to land for growing food and space for cooking, many urban residents lived in cramped conditions that made home cooking difficult or impossible. In London, William Fitzstephen observed in the 12th century that cookshops provided eatables every day according to the season. These establishments served both tourists and locals, offering the medieval equivalent of takeout food. Near the Thames, shops operated around the clock, selling meat pies, pancakes, bread, and sweets to hungry Londoners. The poorest urban residents often lived in tenement housing that lacked proper cooking facilities. Without a hearth, these individuals couldn't cook their own meals, and instead relied on street vendors and cookshops for their daily sustenance. This necessity gave rise to a thriving street food economy that catered primarily to the working class and travelers. Medieval food vendors were savvy business people who understood the importance of location. They positioned themselves strategically in busy areas such as market squares, near city gates, and along major thoroughfares to capture foot traffic from both locals and visitors. In some cities, including Norwich and Bristol, specific streets became known as Cook Street or Cook's Lane, indicating areas where food vendors clustered together. This concentration of similar businesses created something akin to modern food courts, where customers could browse various options before making their selection. It also facilitated regulation and oversight by city authorities, who were concerned with maintaining quality standards and preventing food-related illnesses. Paris developed one of Europe's most vibrant street food scenes by the 12th century, with vendors setting up stalls along major streets and bridges. They sold grilled meats, soups, bread, waffles, pancakes, and tarts, often positioning themselves outside churches or in marketplaces to catch the largest crowds. If there was a signature fast food item of the medieval period, it would undoubtedly be the meat pie. These portable, filling pastries were the medieval equivalent of today's hamburger, affordable, satisfying, and widely available. Londoners regularly purchased hot meat pies and pasties from street vendors, appreciating their convenience and portability. However, medieval consumers faced a significant challenge that modern fast food eaters rarely worry about: food safety. Meat pies sometimes contained spoiled or dubious ingredients. A 13th century source from Norwich reports that some cooks used diseased pork in their pies, while other vendors would reheat several days old pies rather than discard them. The risk of consuming tainted meat was so common that a saying emerged: "God sends the meat, but the devil sends the cooks." Despite these hazards, meat pies remained extremely popular throughout the medieval period. They typically contained chopped meat mixed with spices and enclosed in a pastry crust that served both as a container and preservation method. The crust often wasn't meant to be eaten, but rather functioned as a disposable wrapper, an early form of food packaging. Bread formed the foundation of the medieval diet across all social classes, making bakers essential figures in any community. By the 14th century, bread consumption in Western Europe was estimated at around 1 to 1.5 kilograms, 2.2 to 3.3 pounds per person per day. However, many urban households, approximately 41%, didn't own grain, meaning they purchased their bread rather than making it themselves. Medieval bakers offered services beyond simply selling loaves. Customers could bring their own meat to a bakery and have it wrapped in dough and baked, an early version of takeout service. This practice was so common that London passed a law in 1350 prohibiting bakers from charging more than a penny to wrap customers' meat in bread. The importance of bread in the medieval diet led to strict regulation of its production and sale. In England, the Assize of Bread and Ale of 1266 established detailed tables governing the size, weight, and price of bread in relation to grain prices. These regulations aimed to prevent price gouging and ensure that even during times of scarcity, bread remained affordable. Medieval Europeans also pioneered the concept of the edible bowl through trenchers, thick slices of bread used as plates for serving stews and other dishes. After the meal, these bread plates, now soaked with savory juices, could be eaten or given to the poor or dogs. Despite limited access to sugar, medieval Europeans found numerous ways to satisfy their sweet tooth. Honey served as the primary sweetener until the late medieval period, when sugar, imported from the Middle East and later the New World, gradually became more accessible. Popular sweet street foods included: 1. Gingerbread. Unlike the cookies we know today, medieval gingerbread combined honey with ginger, cloves, and pepper for a sweet, spicy flavor profile. 2. Fritters. These fried dough treats sometimes contained apples, saffron, flour, and honey, creating a satisfying sweet indulgence. More frugal versions might include fried dough filled with ginger and almonds, topped with beet juice for sweetness. 3. Funnel cakes. Originally known as crisps, these fried cakes were special treats due to the scarcity of ingredients like sugar. Some creative variations included fritter of milk, which was essentially fried, sweetened cottage cheese. 4. Waffles. The earliest versions, known as obelios in ancient Greece, were flat cakes cooked between two plates. During the Crusades, a more recognizable waffle batter combining cinnamon, honey, and cream gained popularity in Europe. The Dutch introduced the grid pattern in the 15th century, creating the perfect vessel for toppings. By the late Middle Ages, wafers and biscuits, known as cookies in America, had become high-prestige foods available in many varieties, often served as desserts at the tables of the wealthy. Pretzels were another popular street food, distinctive for their twisted shape and glossy exterior. According to legend, pretzels were invented by a monk who shaped dough to resemble arms crossed in prayer and gave them as rewards to children who learned their prayers. The characteristic twisted shape and brown glossy crust made pretzels instantly recognizable. Beyond their role as tasty snacks, pretzels were sometimes considered good luck charms, their unique shape believed to ward off evil or bring good fortune. Street vendors sold them from carts or baskets, offering an affordable, portable option for people on the move. In England, street food reflected the island's maritime culture and agricultural practices. Fish was abundant and affordable, with vendors selling various preparations, from simple grilled fish to more complex fish pies. The English were particularly fond of eels, which were plentiful in rivers and could be sold live or cooked. London's street food scene was especially vibrant, with cook shops concentrated near the Thames, catering to merchants, sailors, and travelers. A traveler from Venice reported on the abundance of meat such as geese, pigs, beef, swans, and game in medieval London, though he was less impressed with English beer, which he described as foul-smelling and unappetizing. Archaeological findings from medieval English cities have revealed the remains of portable ovens and cooking vessels used by street vendors, indicating a sophisticated infrastructure for mobile food preparation. France, particularly Paris, developed a reputation for high-quality street food during the medieval period. French vendors were known for their pastries, including an early version of the croissant and various meat-filled pastries. The French approach to street food emphasized technique and flavor, reflecting the culinary sophistication that would later make French cuisine world-renowned. Paris had a thriving network of food vendors by the 12th century, with stalls along major thoroughfares and bridges. Historical records mention Parisian street vendors selling grilled meats, soups, various types of bread, waffles, pancakes, and tarts, often positioned strategically outside churches or busy marketplaces. French municipal authorities established strict regulations to maintain food safety and prevent fraud, ensuring vendors sold quality goods at fair prices, an early form of consumer protection. In Mediterranean regions like Italy and Spain, street food reflected the bounty of the sea and the influence of Arabic culinary traditions. Venetian street vendors sold fried fish, polenta, and imported goods such as spices, sugar, and dried fruits, which shaped local food traditions. The warm climate of these regions allowed for year-round outdoor vending and dining, creating a particularly vibrant street food culture. Vendors in coastal cities specialized in seafood preparations, offering quick, flavorful bites to workers and travelers. The influence of Islamic Spain brought new flavors and techniques to European street food, including the use of almonds, citrus, and rose water in sweet preparations. These influences spread northward through trade and travel, enriching the culinary landscape of medieval Europe. In Germanic regions, street food often featured hearty, filling options suitable for the colder climate. Thick stews, sausages, and dense breads provided sustenance during harsh winters. Beer was a common accompaniment to street food in these areas, with vendors sometimes offering both food and drink. The Hanseatic League, a commercial alliance of northern European cities, facilitated the exchange of culinary ideas across the Baltic and North Sea regions. Street foods in these areas often featured preserved fish, particularly herring, which was an important trade commodity. Medieval street food primarily catered to the lower and middle classes, including laborers, craftspeople, merchants, and travelers. The nobility and wealthy generally ate at home or in private establishments, considering street food beneath their status. However, the appeal of certain street foods occasionally transcended class boundaries, with even the wealthy indulging in particularly well-made or novel treats. The accessibility of street food helped ensure that even the poorest urban dwellers could obtain hot, prepared meals. For many, These vendors provided the only alternative to going hungry, as they lacked both cooking facilities and the means to purchase more expensive provisions. Working-class individuals could purchase cooked food from bakeries, delis, small restaurants, and saloons, saving time and energy on daily cooking. These establishments offered affordable options accessible to lower-income populations. Meanwhile, cookshops in busy market squares or near city gates provided diverse meals appealing to both locals and travelers, including those from higher social classes. Women played a significant role in the medieval street food economy, often working as vendors or operating cookshops. These businesses provided opportunities for widows and single women to support themselves independently, at a time when economic opportunities for women were limited. Records from various European cities mention female food vendors, particularly those selling baked goods, dairy products, and prepared foods. These women contributed to the urban economy while challenging the conventional gender roles that confined women to domestic spaces. The street food trade also reflected the division of culinary labor in medieval society. Men typically dominated meat-related professions, including butchery and the preparation of meat dishes, while women were more commonly associated with baking and the preparation of dairy-based foods. Medieval authorities recognized the potential health hazards associated with street food and implemented various regulations to protect consumers. City officials conducted inspections of food vendors, checking for spoiled ingredients, incorrect weights, and fraudulent practices such as substituting cheaper meats for more expensive ones. In London, regulations mandated specific prices for various types of meat and prohibited misleading practices such as selling beef as venison or baking unsuitable or spoiled meat in pies. Violations could result in fines and imprisonment, demonstrating the seriousness with which authorities approached food safety. The Assize of Bread and Ale in England, established in 1266, not only regulated prices but also set standards for quality and weight, preventing bakers from cheating customers during times of scarcity. Despite these regulations, foodborne illness remained a significant risk for consumers of medieval street food. The lack of refrigeration, limited understanding of bacterial contamination, and occasional unscrupulous vendors made eating out a potentially hazardous activity, though necessity often outweighed these concerns for many urban dwellers. The ingredients used in medieval street food varied widely by region, reflecting local agriculture and availability. Staple ingredients included 1. Grains. Wheat, rye, barley, and oats formed the foundation of many street foods, particularly bread products. Wheat was generally more expensive and prestigious, while the poor consumed cheaper grains like barley and rye. 2. Meats. Pork was the most common meat due to the ease of raising pigs on household waste. Beef was less common, as cattle were valuable draft animals. Poultry, particularly chicken, was widely available, while game meats were generally reserved for the nobility. 3. Fish. Both freshwater and saltwater fish were important protein sources, with cod and herring being staples in northern regions. Preserved fish, particularly stockfish, dried cod, and pickled herring, allowed for long-distance trade and year-round availability. 4. Vegetables. Cabbage, onions, garlic, leeks, and root vegetables featured prominently in soups and stews sold by street vendors. 5. Dairy. Cheese, butter, and milk products were common in regions with strong dairy traditions, particularly in Northern Europe. The medieval period saw the gradual introduction of exotic ingredients through trade, though these primarily influenced the cuisine of the wealthy before trickling down to street food. Spices such as pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg were imported from Asia at great expense, while sugar came from the Middle East and later the Americas. Trade routes played a crucial role in shaping medieval street food by introducing new ingredients and culinary techniques. The Silk Road connected Europe to Asia, bringing spices that transformed European cooking. Maritime trade in the Mediterranean linked European ports with North Africa and the Middle East, introducing ingredients like citrus fruits, rice, and new preparation methods. Venice was a major center of medieval street food thanks to its status as a trade hub between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Venetian street vendors sold not only local specialties, but also imported goods, including spices, sugar, and dried fruits that influenced local culinary traditions. The Hanseatic League facilitated trade across northern Europe, standardizing weights and measures, and establishing reliable supply chains for food ingredients. This network allowed street food vendors in cities from London to Novgorod to access similar ingredients, though they prepared them according to local tastes and traditions. Medieval street food followed seasonal rhythms, with offerings changing based on available ingredients. Spring brought fresh greens and dairy products, summer provided abundant fruits and vegetables, autumn featured harvested grains and preserved foods, while winter relied heavily on stored provisions. Preservation methods were essential for maintaining a year-round supply of ingredients. 1. Smoking. Meats and fish were smoked over wood fires to extend their shelf life and add flavor. 2. Salting. Salt was used to preserve meat, fish, and some vegetables, drawing out moisture to prevent bacterial growth. 3. Pickling. Vegetables and some fruits were preserved in vinegar or brine. 4. Drying. Fruits, herbs, and some meats were dried in the sun or over low heat. 5. Fermentation. This process was used for bread, leavening, beer, wine, and some vegetable preparations. These preservation methods not only extended the life of perishable foods, but also created distinctive flavors that became integral to medieval cuisine. Street food vendors often used preserved ingredients in their offerings, particularly during winter months when fresh produce was scarce. Medieval street vendors employed various cooking techniques adapted to their mobile or small-scale operations. 1. Baking. Bread, pies, and pastries were staples of street food, requiring access to ovens. Some vendors had arrangements with local bakers to use their ovens during off hours, while others operated their own small establishments with built-in ovens. 2. Grilling. Simple grills made of metal grates over charcoal or wood fires allowed vendors to cook meats and fish quickly for waiting customers. 3. Boiling. Cauldrons of simmering stews and soups provided hot, filling meals that could be served throughout the day. Before. Frying. Oil or animal fat in shallow pans was used to fry fritters, pancakes, and other quick cooking items. 5. Roasting. Larger pieces of meat could be roasted on spits over open fires, typically in more established cookshops, rather than by mobile vendors. The specific techniques used varied by region, with Mediterranean vendors more likely to use olive oil for frying, while Northern Europeans relied on animal fats, like lard and butter. Street vendors needed equipment that was durable, portable, and efficient. Common tools included 1. Cauldrons and pots, made of cast iron or copper. These were essential for soups, stews, and boiled items. 2. Griddles, flat metal surfaces for cooking pancakes, fritters, and flatbreads. 3. Spits, for roasting meats over open fires. 4. Knives and cleavers, for cutting and preparing ingredients on site. 5. Baskets and boxes, for displaying and storing prepared foods. More established cookshops had a layout designed to maximize efficiency and attract customers. The cooking area was often visible from the street, allowing passers-by to see and smell the food being prepared. Counter space faced the street for serving customers, while preparation areas were situated in the back or side of the shop. In Piers Plowman, A medieval poem. Cooks and their assistants are described shouting through the streets to advertise their wares, adding to the sensory experience of medieval urban life. Without refrigeration, medieval street food vendors faced significant challenges in keeping ingredients fresh and preventing foodborne illness. Some strategies included: 1. Cooking food to order when possible, particularly for items like griddle cakes and fried foods. 2. Heavy spicing to mask the flavor of ingredients that were not perfectly fresh. 3. Reheating previously cooked items throughout the day to kill bacteria, though this was not always effective. 4. Selling highly preserved foods, like smoked meats and pickled items that were less prone to rapid spoilage. Despite these efforts, food safety remained a significant concern. Municipal regulations often specified how long certain foods could be kept before they had to be discarded, or prohibited the reuse of oils and fats after a certain period. The challenges of food preservation likely contributed to the popularity of heavily spiced dishes and strongly flavored sauces that could disguise the taste of ingredients that were slightly past their prime. Beyond their practical function of feeding the hungry, medieval cookshops and street food stalls served as important social spaces. In an era before cafes and restaurants as we know them today, these establishments provided places for people to gather, share news, and build community bonds. Medieval towns had street cafes and specialized food establishments that became busy, sociable meeting places during lunchtime and in the evening. Positioned strategically in busy areas like market squares and city gates, cookshops were integral to urban food culture and daily life. For travelers and merchants, cookshops offered not only sustenance, but also opportunities to gather information about local conditions, make business connections, and find lodging. The communal nature of medieval street food consumption created networks of interaction that transcended social boundaries, albeit temporarily. Religion significantly influenced medieval street food, particularly through fasting regulations imposed by the Catholic Church. On fast days, which could comprise nearly half the year when all fasting days were counted, consumption of meat was prohibited, creating demand for fish and vegetable-based street foods. This religious calendar created a rhythm in street food offerings, with vendors adapting their menus to accommodate fasting requirements. Fish pies, cheese pastries, and vegetable fritters became popular alternatives to meat-based options on fast days. Religious festivals and feast days also shaped street food culture, with specific foods associated with particular celebrations. For example, special breads and cakes were prepared for Easter, Christmas, and Saints' days, offering vendors opportunities to sell seasonal specialties. Medieval street food appears in various literary and artistic works, providing valuable insights into how these foods were perceived and consumed. In the Canterbury Tales, Geoffrey Chaucer mentions cookshops and their wares, while the aforementioned Piers Plowman describes food vendors calling out to attract customers. Illuminated manuscripts sometimes depict market scenes with food vendors, showing their stalls, cooking equipment, and interactions with customers. These visual representations complement written accounts, offering glimpses of the vibrant street food culture that animated medieval towns. Municipal records, including regulations, court cases involving food vendors, and tax documents, provide additional evidence of the economic importance and social position of street food in medieval society. The medieval approach to fast food shares surprising similarities with modern practices. Both emerged from the need to feed urban populations quickly and affordably. Both rely on standardized preparations that can be made in advance or assembled quickly, and both face challenges related to quality control and public perception. Many foods that were popular in medieval streets, meat pies, fried dough, pancakes, and waffles, remain staples of contemporary fast food and street food cultures throughout Europe. The portable, convenient nature of these meals mirrors modern fast food, demonstrating the consistent human need for quick, accessible nourishment throughout history. The geographic clustering of medieval food vendors in specific streets or districts presaged modern food courts and restaurant rows, while the competitive environment encouraged innovation and specialization, dynamics that continue to shape the fast food industry today. Many foods that originated as medieval street fare have survived into the modern era, though often with modifications. British meat pies and pasties, German pretzels, French crepes, Italian fritters, and various forms of fried dough have direct lineages to their medieval counterparts. These surviving foods often serve as important markers of cultural identity and regional pride. In some cases, traditional preparation methods have been preserved alongside the foods themselves, maintaining connections to medieval culinary practices. The modern resurgence of interest in artisanal and traditional foods has led to renewed appreciation for these historical street foods, with some vendors explicitly emphasizing their medieval origins as a selling point. The medieval concern with food quality and fair pricing established precedents for modern food safety regulations. Today's health inspections, ingredient labeling requirements, and consumer protection laws evolved from the rudimentary oversight provided by medieval guild systems and municipal authorities. While modern science has identified the specific pathogens and contaminants that medieval regulators could only intuit, the fundamental goal remains the same: ensuring that commercially prepared food is safe to eat and honestly represented to consumers. The transition from medieval oversight to modern food safety systems was gradual, with significant developments occurring during the Industrial Revolution and the early 20th century, as scientific understanding of foodborne illness improved and urbanization created new challenges for food distribution. Archaeological excavations have provided tangible evidence of medieval street food culture that complements written accounts. Urban excavations throughout Europe have uncovered the physical remains of cookshops, including hearths, cooking vessels, and food waste that offer insights into what people were eating and how it was prepared. In London, archaeological digs near Cheapside and Thames Street have revealed concentrations of animal bones showing professional butchery marks, suggesting areas where food was prepared and sold commercially. Fish bones found in these areas often show consistent cutting patterns, indicating standardized preparation methods used by professional cooks rather than household preparation. Pottery fragments found at these sites include specialized cooking vessels, serving dishes, and containers designed for takeaway food. Some excavated pottery shows evidence of repeated exposure to high heat, consistent with commercial cooking rather than domestic use. The distribution of these finds helps archaeologists identify areas where street food vendors operated. In York, excavations at Coppergate uncovered a well-preserved Viking-age urban environment with evidence of commercial food preparation, including specialized ovens and distinctive food waste patterns that suggest street food vending as early as the 10th century. Beyond cooking equipment and food waste, archaeologists have gained insights into medieval street food through the analysis of human remains. Isotope analysis of bones can reveal dietary patterns, while dental studies show evidence of the types of foods commonly consumed. Excavated cesspits provide particularly rich sources of information about medieval diets. These pits contain food waste, including fruit pits, nutshells, fish bones, and other indigestible materials that pass through the digestive system. Analysis of these remains helps reconstruct the everyday diets of urban dwellers, including foods likely purchased from street vendors. Soil samples from medieval streets and markets have yielded microscopic evidence of food preparation and consumption, including charred grain, fish scales, and fruit seeds. These findings help map the spatial distribution of food vending within medieval cities and track changes in consumption patterns over time. Medieval street food needed to be affordable for working people while still profitable for vendors. Price points varied widely depending on ingredients, preparation complexity, and local market conditions. Basic items like bread and simple pancakes were among the most affordable options, while meat pies and dishes containing expensive ingredients like sugar or imported spices commanded higher prices. Municipal records from various European cities include regulations stipulating maximum prices for common food items, suggesting that authorities intervened to keep basic foods affordable during times of scarcity. These price controls were particularly common for bread, which was considered a necessity rather than a luxury. The pricing structure of medieval street food reflected the hierarchical nature of medieval society. Some vendors offered different quality levels of the same basic food. For example, white bread made from refined wheat flour for wealthier customers alongside darker, coarser bread for poorer ones. This tiered approach allowed vendors to serve customers across different economic strata. Street food vendors operated under various business models, from simple one-person operations to more complex establishments with multiple employees. The smallest ventures might involve a single person selling homemade bread or pies from a basket, while larger cookshops could employ several workers, including cooks, servers, and apprentices. Guild systems in many cities regulated who could sell prepared foods and under what conditions. Membership in these guilds provided certain protections and privileges, but also imposed obligations regarding quality, pricing, and business practices. In some cities, different guilds controlled different aspects of food production and sale, creating a complex regulatory environment. Profit margins varied widely depending on the type of food sold, the vendor's overhead costs, and market competition. Foods with inexpensive, locally available ingredients generally offered better profit potential than those requiring imported or luxury items. Vendors also had to factor in fuel costs for cooking, which could be substantial in urban areas where wood and charcoal were expensive. Medieval street food vendors faced significant seasonal fluctuations in both supply costs and customer demand. During harvest seasons, ingredients were generally more abundant and affordable, allowing vendors to offer more variety at better prices. Winter months brought higher costs for preserved foods and heating fuel, potentially squeezing profit margins. Customer demand also followed seasonal patterns. Outdoor venues were busier during warmer months when people spent more time in the streets, while indoor cookshops saw increased business during cold or wet weather. Religious observances created predictable cycles of demand for specific types of food, with fish and vegetable dishes selling better during Lent and feast day specialties enjoying brief periods of high demand. To manage these fluctuations, many vendors diversified their offerings throughout the year or supplemented their income with other types of work during slow periods. Some specialized in preserved foods that could be prepared in advance and stored, providing a buffer against seasonal variations in fresh ingredient availability. Medieval street food differed nutritionally from home-cooked meals in several important ways. Street foods often emphasized caloric density and satiety, filling hunger efficiently, rather than nutritional balance. They typically contained higher proportions of carbohydrates and fats compared to domestic meals, which might include more diverse vegetables and grains, depending on household resources. For the poor, street food sometimes provided access to protein sources like meat that might be unaffordable to prepare at home, though often in smaller quantities or lower quality than wealthier households would consume. However, the heavy reliance on bread and other grain-based foods in street food diets could lead to nutritional deficiencies, particularly in vitamins found in fresh fruits and vegetables. The cooking methods used for street food, often frying or baking in fat, increased caloric content compared to the boiling or stewing more common in domestic cooking. While this made street food more energy-dense and satisfying, it potentially contributed to health issues among those who relied heavily on these foods. For medieval urban dwellers, purchasing street food represented a significant trade-off between time and money. Cooking at home requires not only ingredients but also fuel, equipment, and time, all valuable resources, particularly for working people. Many chose to purchase prepared food despite the additional cost because it freed them to engage in income-generating activities or because they lacked adequate cooking facilities. This calculus remains remarkably similar to modern decisions about fast food consumption. Then as now, convenience came at a financial premium, but many considered the time saved worth the extra expense. For those working long hours at physically demanding jobs, the immediate energy provided by calorie-dense street food might outweigh concerns about cost or long-term health effects. The gender dynamics of medieval food preparation also influenced street food consumption. In households where women worked outside the home, there might be less time available for domestic cooking, increasing reliance on commercial food sources. Similarly, single men without female family members to cook for them were common customers for street food vendors. The sensory experience of medieval street food was crucial to its appeal and commercial success. In crowded urban environments, the smells of cooking food wafted through streets and marketplaces, attracting hungry customers to vendors. Contemporary accounts often mention the mingling aromas of baking bread, roasting meat, and frying foods that characterized medieval cities. Visual appeal played an important role in vendors' marketing strategies. Foods were displayed prominently to entice passers-by, with items arranged to showcase their size, color, and freshness. Vendors called out to potential customers, describing their offerings in appetizing terms and sometimes offering samples to entice buyers. The spectacle of food preparation itself served as advertisement. Watching a cook skillfully form pastries, flip pancakes, or tend to roasting meats created theater that drew crowds and built trust in the vendor's expertise. This performance aspect of street food vending remains important in modern street food cultures worldwide. Medieval street food featured bold flavors that could hold up to outdoor consumption and potentially mask ingredients that were less than perfectly fresh. Strong spicing was common, particularly in meat dishes where spices served both to enhance flavor and as preservatives. While the poorest vendors might use spices sparingly due to their cost, those catering to more affluent customers incorporated exotic flavors from imported spices. Sweet and savory combinations were more common in medieval cooking than in many modern Western culinary traditions. Meat pies might include dried fruits alongside savory ingredients, while sweet pastries often incorporate spices we now associate primarily with savory dishes. This blending of flavor profiles created distinctive taste experiences that differed from modern expectations. The limited availability of refrigeration meant that some street foods developed distinctive fermented or aged flavor notes. Cheese-based dishes, sourdough breads, and fermented beverages all featured prominently in the medieval street food landscape. contributing complex flavors that developed through controlled microbial action. While germ theory was unknown in the medieval period, authorities recognized the connection between food quality and public health. Municipal records document outbreaks of illness traced to specific vendors or foods, with subsequent regulatory responses aimed at preventing recurrence. During the Black Death and other plague outbreaks, food markets and cookshops sometimes faced restrictions or closure based on the belief that disease spread through miasma, or bad air, which could be generated by rotting food or poor sanitation. While the scientific understanding was flawed, these measures sometimes inadvertently reduced disease transmission through improved hygiene practices. Food poisoning outbreaks led to increased scrutiny of vendors selling potentially hazardous items like fish and meat pies. In several documented cases, vendors found selling spoiled food faced public punishment, including fines, imprisonment, and humiliating public displays such as being placed in the pillory with the offending food hung around their neck. The concentration of food preparation and consumption in urban areas created significant waste management challenges. Food scraps, bones, shells, and other inedible components created waste that needed disposal. In many cities, this waste was simply thrown into the streets, contributing to sanitation problems and attracting vermin. More organized cities established systems for waste removal, including designated areas for dumping food waste or requirements that vendors dispose of their waste in specific locations. Archaeological evidence shows that some food waste ended up in cesspits, middens, refuse heaps, or was thrown into rivers and streams. The waste generated by street food vendors contributed to broader urban sanitation challenges that medieval cities struggled to address. The connection between poor sanitation and disease was not fully understood, but pragmatic concerns about odor and cleanliness led to gradual improvements in waste management throughout the later medieval period. Women played significant roles in the medieval street food economy, often specializing in particular types of food production and sales. In many cities, women dominated the trade in baked goods, dairy products, and certain prepared foods, while men typically controlled meat preparation and sales. Female food vendors frequently operated on a smaller scale than their male counterparts, selling from baskets or small stalls rather than permanent shops. This smaller footprint required less capital investment and allowed greater flexibility, important advantages for women who might also have domestic responsibilities. Widows of food vendors often continued their husbands' businesses after their deaths, maintaining family livelihoods and professional knowledge. Guild regulations in some cities specifically protected the rights of widows to continue operating their deceased husbands' businesses, recognizing their economic vulnerability and practical expertise. Medieval regulations sometimes treated female food vendors differently from their male counterparts. In some cities, women faced greater restrictions on the types of food they could sell or the locations where they could operate. These gendered regulations reflected broader societal views about appropriate roles for women and concerns about female independence. Despite these challenges, food vending provided important economic opportunities for women, particularly those who were widowed, unmarried, or otherwise needed to support themselves. The ability to produce food at home and sell it publicly created income-generating possibilities that worked within, rather than against, traditional female domestic skills. Court records and municipal documents mention numerous female food vendors, indicating that despite potential barriers, women maintained a significant presence in the street food economy throughout the medieval period. Their participation helped shape the foods available and the ways they were prepared and sold. As we reflect on the rich tapestry of medieval street food culture, several key insights emerge that deepen our understanding of both medieval society and our own relationship with fast food. The study of medieval junk food reveals striking continuities in human needs and behaviors across the centuries. Despite vast technological changes, the fundamental appeal of convenient, tasty, affordable food remains constant. The medieval worker grabbing a meat pie between tasks shares much in common with the modern office worker picking up lunch from a food truck. Many specific foods that began as medieval street fare have survived into the modern era, evolving while maintaining their essential character. Pretzels, waffles, meat pies, and various fried dough preparations connect us directly to medieval culinary traditions, serving as edible links to our past. The practical concerns that shaped medieval street food, balancing cost, convenience, taste, and safety, continue to influence modern fast food development. These enduring considerations remind us that while technology and scientific understanding have advanced dramatically, human needs and priorities show remarkable consistency. Examining medieval street food offers valuable perspectives on broader social dynamics, including class relations, urban development, gender roles, and economic systems. The accessibility of street food across social classes created rare spaces where people of different backgrounds interacted, if only briefly, highlighting food's potential to bridge social divides. The practical necessity of feeding urban populations quickly and affordably drove innovation in food preparation and distribution, demonstrating how everyday needs shape technological and social development. The medieval solutions to these challenges, standardized preparations, specialized vendors, regulatory systems, presaged modern approaches to similar problems. Food regulations and oversight systems that began in the medieval period established important precedents for modern consumer protection. The concern with ensuring honest weights, fair prices, and safe ingredients reflected an understanding that commercial food transactions required public oversight to protect both consumers and reputable vendors. Medieval street food vendors faced many challenges that remain relevant today, including food safety, waste management, economic sustainability, and meeting diverse customer needs. Their solutions, developed without modern technology or scientific understanding, often showed remarkable ingenuity and practicality. The local nature of medieval food systems, with ingredients sourced primarily from surrounding areas, created resilient supply chains that could withstand disruptions. While global trade influenced medieval cuisine, particularly through imported spices and luxury ingredients, the foundation remained local production, a model that many contemporary food activists advocate for sustainability reasons. The community-building aspect of medieval street food reminds us that commercial food spaces can serve important social functions beyond mere sustenance. In medieval cities, cookshops and food stalls created opportunities for information exchange, relationship building, and cultural expression, functions that modern fast food establishments often fail to prioritize. By studying medieval street food, we gain appreciation for the deep historical roots of many foods we enjoy today. This awareness enhances our cultural understanding and connects us to generations of people who found pleasure, nourishment, and community through similar foods. The persistence of traditional street foods through centuries of social and technological change demonstrates their cultural significance and inherent appeal. Many foods that began as medieval street fare now serve as important symbols of regional and national identity, protected and celebrated as cultural heritage. Archaeological, textual, and artistic evidence of medieval street food provides a window into everyday life that official histories often overlook. Through these humble foods, we glimpse the experiences of ordinary people, their tastes, their challenges, their pleasures, humanizing our understanding of the past. In the final analysis, medieval junk food reveals that fast food is not merely a modern aberration, but rather part of a long tradition of meeting human needs through commercial food preparation. By understanding this history, we gain perspective on our own food choices and the systems that shape them. The medieval cook selling pies from a London street stall could never have imagined the global fast food industry of the 21st century, yet the fundamental service they provided, quick, convenient, satisfying food for people on the move, remains essentially unchanged. In this continuity lies a profound connection to our shared human experience across the centuries.